Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this exciting webinar on stopping cyber threats with zero trust network access. And we're very pleased you're here. We hope you'll find this session very useful. We want to do some quick introductions before we get started. So I'm Raju Nagar. I'm the Product Marketing Director at Versa Networks for our
Hi,
SAP and
Anusha.
Unified SASE.
Thank you, Raju. Hi, I'm Anusha Vaidyanathan, Senior Director of Product Management.
Great. And in the next 30 minutes, what we want to do is we want to cover what's happening in the secure access space. What are some problems we are seeing in customer environments, and how can we stop these escalating cyber threats from inflicting harm on customer networks with modern secure access techniques such as zero trust network access? The problem we believe is multifaceted, and the solution should be too. So let's get started. All right. So, the pandemic, as we all know, has had a very interesting effect on organizations, the data, and also the workforce. It has introduced a new paradigm of working where employees are sometimes choosing to work, remotely, and sometimes they're on site. We call this essentially, hybrid work, and hybrid work is here to stay. So not only are employees working from different locations, but applications are also distributed. And while many apps continue to be in the data center, but more and more apps are being moved to the cloud as companies embrace digital transformation. And if the perimeter was blurred before, it has certainly almost completely disappeared now. So, in this new digitally driven hybrid environment, to do their work, employees actually need access to corporate data and applications that is very fast, it's seamless, regardless of where they are working from, what device they are using, and without creating any risk to the organization or to themselves. And at the same time, IT also wants to ensure that network operations are secure and access to applications and data is not compromised, but also that employees get access when and where they need it without any unnecessary network latency or slow response times. The number of applications in use have really increased, particularly post-pandemic. We are seeing a ton of collaboration tools. Networks have become far more complex, and we are seeing many more sophisticated cyber breaches. And you've probably all heard about all the recent VPN vulnerabilities. And so all these network breaches has made it really important, but much harder to ensure that networks are secure and they're not being compromised, and at the same time, users are as productive as they can be, which really brings us to the issue of legacy firewalls and VPNs. Organizations are faced with these legacy remote access VPNs that come bundled in firewalls, or they can be standalone gateways. And these VPNs are built on outdated architectures that were not designed for scale or user experience. They also have several limitations in how they lack granular access, or in how they lack, I should say, granular access policies. And they really actually are increasing an organization's exposure to threats by expanding the attack surface. So I'm sure you faced, if you have a legacy VPN in your network, you probably have faced some of these challenges. But I want to share now some typical customer challenges that we're hearing from our customers. And as I mentioned, technology is moving very rapidly. Digital transformation is here. And not only are organizations reaping the benefits and employees, but hackers also are reaping the benefits of digital transformation and tools such as Gen AI. Hackers today have access to tools and technologies to do their malicious work faster than ever, and in many more sophisticated ways, and VPNs are no match for them. So if you specifically look at some of the problems, first, of course, I mentioned that applications are moving to the cloud, but VPNs still operate on a centralized security perimeter model. And this causes slow connectivity issues due to traffic backhauling. It makes VPNs essentially very inefficient to operate. And we're also seeing that it is much harder, both for vendors and organizations, to upkeep these legacy VPN architectures and to maintain them, which really makes them a very easy target for threat actors to exploit. Now, another issue is BYOD, right? So we know that we use our own mobile devices for corporate work. We want to do that. We don't want to have a separate device for accessing corporate applications and another one for our personal. But this really adds to the security risk for companies because when we use our personal devices for more than corporate work, if our device gets compromised, your entire network is at risk from malware that could be on that user's personal device. And once the user is on the internal network, that malware goes to work silently, moving laterally inside the network, stealing sensitive data. And sometimes it's weeks or months before the organization comes to know about it. And by then, it's typically too late to do anything. And this lateral movement happens because VPNs don't rigorously authenticate and verify users and devices. They simply identify the user at the point of network entry. Typically, that's a password, and the user gets network wide access from the device of choice. So, fundamentally, VPNs are built to trust based on location, not identity, and certainly not identity context. But as we know, it's very easy to get around the perimeter, the firewall perimeter, and most breaches originate on the inside of the network. So, access to internal networks, network wide access should never be granted because, when an attack happens, it cannot be contained. Another big issue here with legacy VPNs is the lack of visibility. IT teams really typically with the VPN will not have that end-to-end visibility into users, devices, and the applications they are using. They're not able to drill down. And this is creating blind spots and inability to see this potentially malicious activity and where it's coming from. And of course, you cannot stop what you cannot see. So the modern approach to zero trust, to secure access is zero trust, which is, never trust based on location, only on identity and the context surrounding the identity. In zero trust, you always assume malicious intent. You authenticate and verify everything, both the user and the device, before granting access. And then only to the application that the user is authorized to access, which is what we call the least privilege access principle. And then you continuously monitor the access and the device security posture during the session, and you enforce adaptive access control if any malicious or otherwise unknown or suspicious action is observed, and you quarantine if necessary or take other remediation actions. And in zero trust, policies are always centrally managed and they follow the user, so there's consistency there. By doing that, by providing this direct per application access, zero trust really significantly reduces the attack surface because the user can only see the application they're accessing and the rest of the network is hidden. And we call this dark cloud. And you simply cannot attack what you cannot see. And because applications are so widely distributed, another thing about zero trust is that it enforces this access closest to the resource, whether that is in the cloud or on premises. From a user perspective, that means it's completely transparent access, regardless of where you're located. So now I quickly want to touch on Versa's zero trust network access. And then, of course, I'll be handing off to Anusha after this, where she will take you into, what are the problems and how are we solving for them with our solution. But Versa provides zero trust network access as part of our SSE, which is Security Service Edge. However, it can be individually installed along with data loss prevention, because that is also now becoming a very key concern for organizations to monitor for the sensitive data loss during application access by users. So let me touch upon some of the highlights. So one of the things, of course, is that Versa ZTNA is cloud delivered. It's deployed with very little effort. There is no rip or replace, and it easily fits into your existing environment. I just talked about the zero trust framework. So Versa ZTNA completely adheres to the core zero trust tenets, which is that it provides very fast, direct, per application based, secure access to enterprise applications, which is what we call private applications. Policies are based on role-based access. They can be as granular as you would like to configure them. Multi-factor authentication and single sign-on is provided through integration with identity providers. And after the user gains access to applications, security posture is continually assessed and verified, including the device security posture. And this is, of course, configurable as well. But most importantly, I want to mention ZTNA, Versa ZTNA reduces the attack surface, completely restricts that lateral movement, so that even in the event of a compromise, because one can never be 100% certain, the attacker doesn't get too far before they are blocked. And a new capability in Versa ZTNA is detecting and preventing sensitive data leakage, and Anusha will take you through that as well. And then finally, perhaps most importantly, from a user perspective, the experience is great because the connection is transparent. There are no VPN gateways to select, no delays in connecting or latency issues. And I also want to mention quickly that supporting the Versa ZTNA is a global backbone of points of presence, which automatically routes the user to the closest ZTNA gateway, so that they can get direct, fast access to the application. So the experience really remains the same regardless of whether the user is located remotely or whether they are on premises. Now I want to get into very quickly components of the Versa ZTNA solution. So of course, there's a self-management portal with complete visibility and control over users' apps. There's the Versa Cloud Gateway that I mentioned, which is a ZTNA gateway. Very fast internet connectivity for the remote workforce, as well as, of course, for local users on site. And then we have both client and clientless options. There's full clientless connectivity, but there's also the universal SASE client, which supports all the popular Windows, Mac and Android devices. So now what I'm going to do is hand off to Anusha. And Anusha, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Raju. So let's dive into the use cases so we understand the problem, and let's see what Versa ZTNA has to offer. So the first basic thing is secure remote access, right? It is replacing VPNs, it is connecting users to applications. And as Raju talked about, the users can be on a corporate laptop running a Versa SASE client that you see here, or they could be on BYOD device. It could be at airport Wi-Fi or a hotel Wi-Fi. They could be accessing enterprise applications from a public laptop, or they could access enterprise applications from just browser-based access, which is what we call the clientless access. So regardless of where the user, or it could be an IoT device, if you have IoT devices, for instance, in a factory floor. So all of them are going to access corporate applications, and the corporate applications themselves can be in the public cloud, meaning the AWS, the Azures, or they could be in an enterprise data center or HQ or campus, as depicted here. So Versa ZTNA provides zero trust access from the users to the enterprise applications, and it provides universal ZTNA policies connecting all of them. So secure remote access also includes secure application access. So that's the first use case. And how are we doing this? We're doing this based on identity based access. As we saw, the authenticating users by network IP addresses is a thing of the past. That's what VPNs did. The Versa ZTNA is purely identity based, and we adhere to the zero trust principles of always verify. This is integrated with identity providers, the Azure ADs and the Google Identity, which manage the user and the role users and roles for your enterprises. And we also integrate with single sign-on providers like the Oktas and the Ping identities. Versa ZTNA supports multi-factor authentication along with the single sign-on. And how are we doing this? We support all industry standard protocols like SAML, LDAP, and SCIM. And that's how we provide identity based access that's based on the particular user identity role application as well as geolocation. So you can think of these two use cases as some of the basic use cases of ZTNA, which many other ZTNA providers also provide. But what's more is that Versa ZTNA is part of the secure service edge, which means that security is built into the Versa ZTNA product. It means that that brings us to the third use case, which is evaluating endpoint posture checks. So identity based management alone is not enough, because what if the endpoint, the where the user is compromised, right? And we look at several different attributes, things like the host certificate, the device certificate. If the host is running a firewall, it could be, say, a Windows firewall, or if the enterprise mandates disk encryption. So we check if the device is coming has disk encryption on. Is it joined to the Azure AD domain? And so on. So we look at dozens of endpoint attributes like this and evaluate the posture continuously, not just at session initiation time. We're continuously evaluating the posture to make sure that the user and the device is in compliance. If the endpoint compliance or posture check doesn't go through, the user or device doesn't get access to the particular enterprise application. So this is really important, and important add-on to just to the identity-based access. So versus ZTNA continuously evaluates endpoint posture and enforces zero trust network access. So that was your third use case. Since the session is on stopping cyber threats with ZTNA, I'm going to move deeper into the security aspects, the additional components that Versa ZTNA provides. Uh, Versa ZTNA comes with IPS protection or intrusion prevention. So what it means is, think of the private applications in your enterprises. They're most likely running, if it is a web application, it is most likely running a flavor of, say, Apache or an Nginx, which are the two most common web application servers. And they have their own set of vulnerabilities. Or if you run, say, a WordPress application, again, that is going to be written with several vulnerabilities. So regardless of the enterprise private application, uh, more than identity based access, more than just role based access, you need protection against vulnerabilities, which includes CVEs that are logged against the Apaches and the Nginx of the world. Versus ZTNA with IPS protection can continuously protect using vulnerability protection, which is delivered through our Versa security package updates, which is out of band. You don't have to upgrade the ZTNA service or the product. The Versa security pack updates give you the vulnerability protection that you need against all newer vulnerabilities that may be seen on these web application servers. So vulnerability protection along with zero trust access is an important component that is part of versus ZTNA. So we talked about vulnerabilities. What about malware itself? Versus ZTNA can contain the malware within the user and the device. For instance, if you have IoT devices in your manufacturing floor or factory, what if one of them is affected by the Mirai malware? You want to contain that within the particular device. Or what if you're a bank, it's a branch office, and you're affected by the emoted banking Trojan or some variant of it? You want to contain that particular teller device from making those command and control connections or initiating botnet activity to affecting other devices in your enterprise site or other even applications. So we want to prevent malware propagation across the applications and sites. The Versa ZTNA can do just that because it comes built in with malware protection capabilities. The next use case is obfuscating remote users. Raju talked about a dark cloud or a dark network. In the VPN days, users connected to applications and got entire access to all the servers or applications in the network, and that led to lateral movement. In the new paradigm with versus ZTNA, the users are going to be obfuscated. The IP addresses are going to be chosen from an enterprise IP pool or a service provider scope, which means that each client subnet is going to be different, and all the users from the different sites and across all customers are going to have their own address space. Not and it won't just take the address of the Versa Cloud gateway. It's going to have unique address space. So you're creating this kind of dark cloud or a dark network as it connects to enterprise applications. So we are obfuscating all the users, remote users. Similarly, the enterprise applications are also not going to be discoverable. Uh, the user might have something like a fully qualified domain name, like, say, myinternalapp.versanow.com. So that's all they get. And what does that translate to? The SSE gateway will respond to the user with a resolved IP address that is randomly allocated from a private pool. When the user's traffic to the application reaches the Versa Cloud gateway, the destination address is replaced with the real IP address of the private application. And this is how we obfuscate or hide the internal enterprise applications. At the same time, users are able to connect to it with their fully qualified domain name. So these are some of the important aspects of Versa ZTNA, and that's how we protect enterprise applications and prevent lateral movement. The final use case is preventing data loss. And we feel that that should also be an important part of a ZTNA solution. Sensitive data can be exfiltrated even through private applications. And as an enterprise, you want to make sure that you're in compliance with any regulatory policies. Like if you are an industry that deals with PCI DSS, or if you're a healthcare provider dealing with HIPAA, or anyone dealing with personally identifiable information or other sensitive data, you want to make sure that uh, the data exfiltration protection is on even for private applications. So versus ZTNA with data loss prevention can protect you against any kind of sensitive data leakage. It includes file type, several file types and protocols, which means that we can tag a sensitive file, say it is your price book, or a sensitive image. Uh, you may want to protect that for your enterprise. You want to protect your intellectual property, and Versa DLP along with ZTNA can do just that. It can also look for any data patterns based on the predefined data protection profiles, uh, like the PCI DSS or HIPAA and so on. So DLP can prevent any unintended or deliberate data exfiltration that can happen through uh, ZTNA. So these were some of the use cases of zero trust network access with built-in security. What we just saw is across the spectrum of the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is the industry standard framework used by SOC teams and other security professionals to map how the framework of an attack. What we just saw is Versa ZTNA with built-in security protects against several of the MITRE ATT&CK techniques that are used by attackers. Um, at the initial aspect, we protect several reconnaissance and initial access attempts by those attackers. The network obfuscation and the application obfuscation are not going to allow exploitation of the applications, exploitation of remote services. The built-in security protection is and the malware protection is going to protect against any phishing and spear phishing attacks. The network topology is hidden. uh, you cannot scan the applications. IP addresses are not discoverable. So that's how we protect against any reconnaissance attacks. And then moving on, the privilege escalation and defense evasion is provided by the identity based access and the continuous enforcement of endpoint profiles. And the third aspect is discovery and lateral movement. Once the attack actually happens, what if it laterally moves across different servers? Again, we are going to prevent that with our network obfuscation, our ability to hide the IP addresses of users as well as the applications. And finally, command and control and exfiltration is prevented using our threat prevention, malware protection capabilities, as well as our data loss prevention. So this is how versus ZTNA with built-in security protects against several attack techniques. Uh, to end with, I want to talk about the Versa Unified SASE. The Versa ZTNA, as you saw, is part of the Unified SASE platform. It is a single platform for both private applications, internet applications, as well as the Versa SD-WAN capabilities. So it is a single unified management plane, control plane, as well as data plane. The Versa Cloud gateways can take care of both internet as well as private applications. So as you see, this is the traffic engineered Versa SASE fabric with the Versa Cloud gateways in several points of presence. And we can connect to internet applications, the SaaS applications, as well as private applications in public clouds like the AWS and Azure. And both the internet access as well as the private access adheres to zero trust principles. So with that, we conclude the use case discussion of versus ZTNA. And over to you, Raju.
Thank you, Anusha. That was great for that insight and in-depth look at the Versa ZTNA. I just want to touch quickly upon some external endorsements that the Versa Unified SASE platform, as well as our Secure Service Edge platform and our Secure SD-WAN has received from industry analysts across, spanning security and networking. As you can see here, we've been named a leader in several Gartner Magic Quadrants, as well also by Forrester, GigaOM, and these are some of the most highly reputed, trusted analysts in our space, and of course also by Cyber Ratings. So let me quickly mention that as well. So a few months earlier, in Q3 of 2023, Cyber Ratings evaluated Versa ZTNA. This was an independent test of the product's capabilities, and Cyber Ratings, as you may know, was formerly NSS Labs. They're a very highly reputable independent test agency for security products, as they do very objective, rigorous product testing, and they use criteria that customers would normally have when selecting a solution. So they're very much aligned to customers' requirements, and that forms the premise of their testing. So in this test, which was an independent test, Versa ZTNA received the highest rating, which is the recommended rating. We passed 100% of the tests for authentication and identity, for resource access, and also for TLS SSL. Our performance was excellent when measured under various load conditions, traffic profiles, and encryption, etc. So, this is the real I would say, endorsement and independent evaluation, objective evaluation of the Versa ZTNA product. And what you see here is a little bit of an eye chart, but this shows many more details on the ZTNA test results, such as what type of tests were conducted, what did the traffic profiles look like. This report is actually available on our website, so please do download it if you would like to check it out and read all the results and exactly what they were. And that basically, concludes our presentation. I hope you found this session useful. We would very much like to stay in touch, and we don't have time for questions, but if you would like to reach out to us, if you have questions or you need more information, Anusha and my email addresses are on the top title slide. And of course, now you will also be able to download this presentation. And we hope that you really found this session insightful and look forward to staying in touch with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.